might be truthful in terms of the local peoples didn't like going there, and that is because apparently the way it's oriented and with the weather patterns that are there, storms move in and it gets really crappy really fast, and so it's really easy to get disoriented because you're thinking, well, the wind is always going to blow from the east, except there's some weird weather patterns where it changes that, and it can screw people's sense of navigation.
Well, I mean,
so
more than that.
That might be real, though, but the whole rock thing is...
yeah.
I was just going to say, more than just the wind patterns. I mean, the wind can be blowing consistently from one side, but the way that the forest looks in a storm versus when you've been walking there. I mean, it's easy enough to get disoriented if you aren't doing that thing you got to do when you're hiking, where every once in a while you look back to make sure you know what it looks like going the other way. If you're not doing that, it's already super easy to get disoriented. If it's kind of sunny and then 10 minutes later it's pouring down rain and wind blowing and you turn around, it's like the easiest thing in the entire world to lose any trail.
That's why, I always just take a 5-mile long rope with me.
I know you do. I've seen you hike before.
I know.
It's really awkward. It's super weird.
It gets a lot lighter towards the end of the hike.
Yeah.
Well, another reason, it gets heavier as you go back. Because God help you, if you don't coil it up as you go home, then you got this big knot at the end of the trail.
Oh, that's disgusting to try to untangle that thing.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing about the Indians, though, is they're much like the rest of us. Is they want a good payday, and I'm not sure how good the game was around there, but I assume that might have been part of it too. If the hunting is not good, then screw it. Why should I go there?
Yeah.
That's another good reason.
Or alternately, if the hunting is really good, why wouldn't you just try to scare people away from that area?
That's a good point too. Yeah. So okay. But anyway, I don't think the Indians were particularly terrified of that.
I don't think so either.
Another possibility is that all 5 of these people were killed by a serial killer. Which I actually think it's possible at least some of them were. It does seem to me like quite possible there was a serial killer at work here.
This eyebrow is raised. I'm waiting for you to justify this to me.
Yeah, well, people that vanish like that, I mean, the middle ones, Mitty, or I should say the early ones, Mitty, Paula, and James, are similar enough. I can see them being done by a single killer. But in the case of Mitty, remember he was the first one, the hunter guide who disappeared.
Right.
I wouldn't totally rule out a hunting accident.
Okay.
Because, I mean, when you think about it, it would be a huge act of daring do for a serial killer even to nab this guy in the woods, this guy who is armed with a rifle himself, and he's being followed by 4 other guys with guns, to just nab that guy and haul him away and kill him. That's pretty ballsy. You gotta, I mean, beyond it's almost Hannibal Lecter territory. The whole idea that this guy was just barely out of sight of these 4 other guys and he just vanishes. I find it really hard to believe a serial killer did that. I find it a lot easier.
I would agree with that.
That there was probably a little accident and they decided to hide the body, which is one possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but the other 3, my problem with this whole serial killer thing, and we talked about this recently, is the serial killers tend to have a pattern and an MO, but these your 3 core, these 3 people right now, or 4 people, are vastly different. We've got an 8-year-old boy, an 18-year-old girl, a 53-year-old woman, and Tedford, who wasn't even in the area, but let's just bring him into the mix. He's a 60-something-year-old man.
He was in the area. He
wasn't on the trail as far as...
He was not on the trail.
Right, and he wasn't on the ground physically. He was supposedly still in the bus. But my point is, they're all very different.
I'm willing to go there with the people who disappeared in the forest.
1 or 2 could be a crime of opportunity,
well, 3,
but...
I mean, 3 or 4 even, because we got a hunting guy
on the trail.
Hunting guy on the trail.
We got
the teenage girl on the trail.
We got woman who slipped and fell on the trail.
Yeah.
But no, she wasn't on the same trail.
Well,
she was far away.
Oh, okay. That's right.
She wasn't on that actual trail,
that's
but
right.
we'll ignore that.
And then kid.
Little boy on the road.
On the road.
Yeah.
I mean, the victims are different, but the MO is not different.
No, it's not.
So it's a kind of a crime of opportunity is what you're getting.
That's what I'm thinking too.
That you just are just crazy person wandering the forest and kidnapping people.
I don't think he was wandering the forest. I mean, with these, also, yeah, Paul, the 8-year-old, as we know, they followed his scent to the highway, or a highway. So, okay, we got a road, and actually we have proximity to road for all these people. I mean, not the first one, not Mitty. And
Right, because he was in the trail.
And not Frida, but the middle three. There is proximity there with 2 roads. So Paul Jepson wanders off, let's say, from the family truck, gets a little bored, forgets that he's been told to stay at the truck, so he just moseys off, gets a little lost, winds up at the highway, where he's picked up by a kindly, helpful stranger, who turned out to be a psycho killer. And which I find more believable than him wandering off and getting lost in the woods and dying of exposure. Because, as we said before, he was wearing a bright red jacket, or as some reports have said, a bright red shirt.
Right.
And it should have been easy enough to spot the body. Of course, there's another possibility with Paul, which was that he didn't disappear at all. It was just parental abuse.
Right.
And
or
that
negligence.
Or negligence.
I mean,
also.
pigs will eat anything.
I was about to say thank you, is that if his parents do something negligent, was the word you used, and I'm going to continue with that word,
or abusive.
Or if he got out and pigs are mean.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Pigs will knock somebody over and bite them while they're laying. I don't know if you've ever been bit by a pig, but it freaking hurts.
I bet.
Yeah.
And they've got sharp little teeth, and they can tear through things quite quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So it's entirely possible that they went, oh, hell.
Lost the kid to the pig. There's another one.
In an hour, call the cops.
Yeah.
Pretty sure they'll be done with him by then.
But that does present a problem in that bloodhound dogs were able to track him.
So there's a
To the
problem with that
highway.
too, though. Because the problem is he disappeared in the afternoon, this 3 to 4 o'clock window. The dogs were brought in the next day. It rained heavily during the night. So those dogs didn't have a whole lot of scent to go on for him. So it's very possible that they picked up a wrong scent and followed that to the road.
Well, I guess it's also possible that he ran to the road, realized he was at the road, ran back, went, Mom, got knocked over by some pigs, and got eaten.
Something like that, yeah.
Possible.
But
Yeah.
there's a huge issue with the dogs because of the fact that there was such heavy rain.
Okay. Well,
yeah,
I guess
but-
that was my first thought, honestly, when we started talking about Paul and there were pigs involved. I just generally think, like, wow, the pigs
If
probably
Deadwood taught me anything,
got
it's
hit by
that pigs
pigs.
will eat
it.
anything.
Yeah, they'll eat
yeah.
anything.
People have fed people to the pigs.
Yep.
It has happened in real life.
Yep.
But, I think that...
Long pig for the pig.
Yeah, I would still rate Paul as a good possibility of, since he was in a pickup truck, that means he was on a road or right next to a road.
Well, if they're at
it
the
could-
dump,
yeah.
there's people that are coming to the dump.
Yeah.
That's always
But I see
possible,
where you're
too.
going. I mean, there are at least 3 people who could have definitely just happened to be on the side of the road and in need of help.
Yeah.
And a
And
quote-unquote
here comes the
kindly
the kindly
person.
psycho stranger shows
Yeah,
up.
I mean, particularly when we're talking about, was it Patricia, right?
Yeah. Paula, you mean?
Polly, yeah.
Paula Weldon.
I mean, she walks back. She hitched there. She's got to hitch back.
Yeah.
Gets in the wrong car and oops.
Yeah, I think that was what it was, because the trail that she was on, it was in a valley, and there was a creek right next to it on one side, and on both sides it was very rough, large rocks, windfalls, and brush and everything like that, and then steep valley walls.
Right.
Not a lot of places to get lost. They would have found her body if she'd been lost.
Well,
up
but
there.
if she decides to do the same thing as Frida and take a shortcut, I know there were some switchbacks here, and I can just cut across, and then follows it too far down, she could very easily get way off of that trail. Because you're right, it is valleys and decent. I mean, the topography isn't very nice in that area. I was looking at the contour maps.
No,
Yeah.
it's not.
But the point is that if you foolishly decide to hell with it, I'm gonna get in the seam of these 2 hills, and I'm gonna follow it down, and it's gonna take me to something. You can go a long way before you actually get to something, and that is a hard hike.
Well,
it would be a hard hike, especially in the dark.
yeah, and with tennis shoes. We with the Lisanne Froon, Froon
Yeah.
and
Crim Cressers?
cream Chris
Kremers.
case. I mean, that seemed like a likely possibility, right? That they thought, oh, we'll just follow this canyon down, and oops, no, that's not. That turned out to be their downfall. I mean, I think it happens certainly, but
it can happen. But the thing about it is
you would think you would find something.
Well, yeah, there is that. You'd think you'd find something, but also I read this blog where this guy who lives in the area went up and retraced her trail on the long trail, and that's what he said. He said, like, you really aren't going to get far off the trail. I mean, you could if you really wanted to, but he says it's so rough. There's so many big rocks and windfalls to have to climb over and everything. He says the going is so rough that he just thought it was really inconceivable that somebody could actually think it would be easier to take a shortcut here to there.
Well, it's hard to get, I guess. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I mean, it essentially that was kind of his point. It's like it was such rough going. I mean, nobody would go more than about 10, 20 feet before realizing that this is just not going to pay off.
Well, I almost wonder if she had no idea of how the trail went, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she might have thought, oh, it kind of goes parallel to the road.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets an hour in, say she gets a couple hours in and realizes, I don't have any water.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting dehydrated. I don't have any food. I'm freezing. I wasn't ready for this. And in her mind, she thinks, and again, it's one person.
Yeah, she thinks the road is right over there.
It's just over that little thing. She starts to climb up that thing, and in her mind, she's got to get there any minute. It wouldn't. I mean, she would think this is definitely easier going than walking an hour back. There's no way I can get an hour back. I'm so tired. And she's climbing and thinking, oh my gosh, the road's right there. And, is wrong and, either decides, oh, I'll lay down and take a nap here or
just die. Yeah.
Hide for shelter.
Yeah.
But
let me throw this in,
okay.
though. They had like 5 planes also as part of this search.
True.
I mean, there was like a lot of people out there beating the bushes looking for her.
Oh, no, I definitely more believe she got in the car with a serial killer. I'm just trying to add a little.
But I actually disagree with the guy that you were reading the writings of who was saying nobody would get off of this trail, because I was reading blogs by guys who have hiked that entire trail, and they have, for one, I can't remember what organization it is that maintains the long trail.
It's
I can't.
Yeah, I know. I've seen their website.
But they tell people to stay off of the trail. I want to say from October-ish to like March, because it's so wet and it's so bad, and that's one reason. The other reason, because it washes out and it's slick and it's crappy, but it's also muddy. And this guy that I was reading who had hiked this trail, he'd actually classified it into 6 types of mud, from the slippery to the soggy to the boot removing type of mud.
I've been in that
kind.
And
and if it's all deciduous leaves and you can't tell what's going on, and you take it and you take a tumble in that, and you're walking on what is supposed to be the trail, and oh my god, it's soggy and it's slick. You know what's easier? People have been hiking over this. I'm just going to get off the trail a little bit and follow that, because it won't be as bad, because there's not as much foot traffic on it. Like, I can see why somebody would get off of the trail.
But the thing about it is you can't get. I mean, the trail is essentially constrained by valley walls on both sides. I mean, you can get off the trail and walk parallel to it, but you can't just walk off at 60 degrees without coming into a hillside.
But if you're walking parallel to it, and then you start drifting. So let's say she's on the downhill side of the trail, because it seems like it's surer footing, and then she starts just drifting down the slope a little bit, and eventually gets herself to a point where she has no idea where the hell the trail is anymore.
I have a problem with that, and that is that there were a lot of other people on the trail, and they would mention it was really gross out.
Would they, though? In 1940, well, no, it's clear weather, but the trail is going to be soggy. But, I mean, if you look at what is in the news articles, they don't really talk about the conditions. They're all focusing on her, because she's a college-age girl, and her dad, because he is a prominent industrialist.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
like,
that's fair.
They don't focus on that, because that's the reporting of the time doesn't encompass everything. This is what people gotta know.
Well, I mean, regardless of that, I really think I agree with Joe that, if her body had been there,
It would have been found.
It would have
by
been
now.
found.
Yeah.
I know
Somebody
you
would-
don't seem to agree with
Yeah.
me.
No, I don't, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I just think it's much more likely that she made it out of there because, you know, she was not dumb. I mean, it's like, you know, it's like I think she would have just stuck with the trail and moseyed on back out and down the road again.
Unless she intentionally wandered away.
Maybe she just wanted to go off and commit suicide.
I mean, there are
Yeah.
people who say that she was having but she was not in good spirits lately.
Yeah.
There's the whole thing about her fight with her dad
Yeah.
and whatever that might have been, and it may have been some suicide attempt that was successful.
Yeah.
Maybe she managed to do it and actually conceal herself. But
Yeah, she burrowed into a nook in the ground. There's caves in that area.
Mm-hmm.
She could have gone into a cave for shelter or intentionally to die, and you know nobody ever found her in that cave until long after she's decomposed and the animals have scattered around and nobody notices it. Hey, wait a second. So I know this is probably my fault, but I got us way off a track in
Okay.
terms of
Off
what-
trail.
off trail of what
Uh-huh.
we're looking at in front of us.
Yeah.
So we're still on serial killer, or because I
Serial
feel like I
killer.
drug us away from that.
Well,
Maybe threw us into the
we're
booth.
sort of going back and forth between since we can't agree that they all necessarily met the same fate.
True.
We're
Not
kind of on-
not 100% of them.
Not 100% of them, but we're kind of on serial killer versus getting lost in the woods.
Okay.
I'm voting for she made it back to the Paula, that is, made it back to the road. That's Highway 9. Hitched a ride with a friendly stranger who was a psycho and killed her.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think happened.
I think she met Bob.
Could have been Bob. Who's Bob?
Last name Cat.
Bobcat. Yeah, could have been.
The area does have bobcats.
Yeah.
And
Bobcats are little.
have you ever been scratched by a cat?
Yeah, I'm just saying. Bobcats
Now multiply
are
that by
little.
the size. Like the area,
Yeah.
they were considered a varmint or a nuisance in the area, and while they used to be hunted for I can't remember the reward because they would certain
Yeah,
states.
bounty. There's
Yes,
bounty
thank you,
on
a
it.
bounty. That's it.
Yeah.
But there was that, and there are bear in the area. Actually, I guess bobcats aren't the only cat, but there are big cats in the area.
Well, yeah, if we're talking about cougars or whatever, I'll accept it. A bobcat.
Okay, so if we say a
Bobcat-
cougar, though, if we say that kind of cat,
Yeah.
it's entirely possible. Let's just pretend for a second that she didn't get taken by a person, but she did get taken by a cat. A lot of times those cats drag their prey up into a tree.
Cougars do, yeah.
Which would, that would explain why nobody found her body on the ground.
I don't
just
know
have
about
to
a
prove,
bobcat,
I was
though.
going to say, I just have to prove a point. Bobcats max out at about 25 pounds.
But they're mean.
But they're little.
But they're mean.
But still.
Anyway, so yeah, I mean, okay, so
You're little and you're mean.
that's true because I'm
That's
closer
true.
to hell.
Oh yeah, so we talked
Frida.
about Paula. Let's talk about a little bit more about. Well, so as far as the mysterious disappearance, she talked about that. She might have nipped away to go pee, or maybe she noticed she was being followed by a couple of people. She wasn't sure who they were, what their intentions were. She
She
decided
hid
to hide
behind a
them.
tree.
Yeah.
You know, I can see that.
Yeah.
Or just didn't want human company. But I'm still thinking that I think Paula made it back to the road.
I agree.
And she met a friendly but helpful stranger who offered to give her a ride.
Bob.
Yeah, that's Bob. And then there's James Tedford. So the three here, they said Paul, Paula, and James. Well, the thing that they have in common for me is their proximity to a road. He was on a road, on a bus. He was seen on the bus, and remember that I think the relevant clue here is the bus schedule that they found laying on the seat next to him that was open.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that James was sitting there in the bus station in Manchester, and probably had one of those moments where you realize, hey, I probably need to go to the bathroom before we hit the road again.
Mm-hmm.
So, what does he do? He wants to know how much time he's got. So he pulls out the bus schedule and says, hey, I've got 10 minutes before the bus leaves Manchester. So off he goes, and meantime, maybe his watch was off, or maybe sometimes things in the bathroom just take a little longer than you think
Yeah.
they will.
I mean,
you know?
alternately, he thought, I have time to go grab a piece of pie
Mhm.
from that diner over there. It took a little longer
Yeah, that
than
could be.
anticipated.
Well, and the thing is, because the buses had been so delayed by the snowstorm that was going on at the time, he had. There's accounts that somebody that knew him ran into him at one of the bus stops
Uh-huh.
and chatted with him. So, I mean, it wasn't as if he was just hiding on the bus the entire time.
Mhm. No,
But
you would get off. I mean, you'd get up and stretch your legs.
But I have huge problems with the Tedford story.
Yeah. Well, I know
Yeah,
that,
really?
I know
do.
that not everything has been consistently reported.
Well,
But-
the problem is that he was on this bus, we think, around the 1st of December, but the is it the old soldiers' home?
Yeah.
That's where he was at, right?
Yeah.
That's where he was staying?
Yeah, in Bennington.
They called his family a week later to say, hey, so, like, is he really coming back or what? Because we're
Yeah.
holding his bed.
Yeah.
At which point, then his family turns around and calls the cops, and the cops then track down the bus driver and the people that are on the bus a week after that.
At least
there's,
a week, yeah.
There's full 2 weeks of time between the actual incident and when the cops talk to him. So these people are like, oh yeah, I remember looking over and totally seeing him sleeping on the bus with the schedule next to him. Oh yeah, it was weird. Then I noticed he wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's made out to be as if minutes between these events. It's, so
Yeah,
it's,
I know.
there's problems with that one.
But there's problems with it, but still, and that's why I don't see this one in terms of him vanishing just like that, like by magic off the moving bus.
Yeah, no.
I never bought that to begin with. I thought
No, he
I figured
never
got
disappeared off the yellow bus.
No, I figured he got off
the magic school bus.
He had the magic, but so I figured he got off the bus. Nonetheless, he did disappear. There ain't no disputing that. And it could have been that he just ran away. It could have been, which is possible. Or it could be that he got off the bus and hitched a ride with a friendly, helpful stranger. Turned out to be a psycho killer.
Named Bob.
Yeah.
Or he
yeah.
could have just become, the part of the moving mass of homeless people that shuffle around in those areas. I mean, he doesn't have anything to really go back to at the old soldiers' home, other than he's paid for. I'm assuming he paid for, unless how those work.
I don't know.
But let's just say that he's not paying for anything. He's like, you know what? That place really blows.
Yeah.
And I really hate listening to Bob tell war stories all day long. Screw it. I'm going to hang out here. And then it's December. There's a giant frickin' snowstorm. He gets kicked out of the bus station and he dies in an alley of exposure with no ID on him because somebody rolls his body over and steals his wallet. We would never know because the ME is going to have nothing to identify him with.
True.
True.
That.
I mean,
But
there's very simple ways,
but-
especially with Tedford.
Yeah, no, there are. I mean, there are other ways, but again, somebody local freezes to death, and in the meantime, Tedford has disappeared. Somebody's going to make at least a little bit of an effort to connect those dots, I would think.
I don't know that that's the case because the cops are going and hunting down these people that are now far afield, and maybe the local let's just say it was Manchester. Is that who you were saying?
If it was Manchester,
The
where he
local
got off the
Manchester
bus.
PD may not have been the ones that were investigating.
Yeah, maybe not.
You know,
Well, I mean, they might not have, but you would think there's some sort of register of local missing people.
I don't know. In the 50s, sometimes it feels like they played things a little more fast and loose, whereas today everything is just, fill in the forms. It's all the data. We always pull it and access it. We know exactly what's going on. Generally speaking, I get it's not a perfect system. But I don't feel like that's the case in, typewriters and Rolodex days.
No, I mean, it definitely was all manual. I mean, you couldn't have computer cross-matching or anything.
Right.
But again, people were reading the local papers. People would have seen his pictures, and so it's
Theoretically, but
it's theoretically possible that what you're saying is true. I find it actually a little easier to believe that he got off the bus at some point and was nabbed by a serial killer. But marginally. But I admit that what you're talking about is also possible. I mean, serial killers are actually sometimes easier to believe.
I'm mostly just say, yeah, he got off the bus at Manchester,
and walked
Yeah.
away.
missed the bus, and
I don't know what happened. And then just caught another bus to somewhere else and started working and just
named himself
never...
Benjamin Kyle and got on with it.
Yeah,
entirely
that's
possible.
entirely possible right there.
No, it is possible. I mean, it's an interesting little story, and certainly maybe he was murdered, but there's other possibilities. So yeah, I mean, and so it's really hard to say with all these if they're related at all. I think they might be. It's entirely possible that there's a serial killer doing something.
What about Frida though? Okay, so
Frida? No, I don't
so
think,
wait,
I don't think Frida is related. I didn't talk about Frida.
No,
at
we
all.
haven't talked
Okay.
because we've talked about Paul and Paula and Paul and Paula and James.
And Mitty.
And, well, so because earlier you said you thought it was probably a hunting accident. So
Possibly.
what about Frida? Because she's the only one, she's the last one.
Well, and Frida's the one that I say is, was so far away from the whole Bennington area, you can't really say she's part of the triangle anyway. But that's another one that's kind of like Mitty in that it would have taken a very, very, very skilled, Hannibal Lecter type of serial killer to nab her in the woods. Just for one thing, to just be lucky enough to be right there when she went hustling by to go back to the camp to change her clothes, and then nab her and cart her off to God knows where and do his thing and murder her and everything. That's why I think there's other possibilities. She could have gotten lost. I don't think so. And the reason I say that is because how they found her body. I think most likely she went back to camp. She and her husband argued. The husband killed her, accidentally or not, hid the body. And then, later on, when it was a more opportune time, the search had died down. They went back and retrieved the body and dumped it somewhere else.
Hid it like where?
What's that?
In her sleeping bag. Because those are so easy to roll up, and you would never tell that it was lumpy and full of human.
Yes, that's true.
No, really, I'm being a jerk, but she makes a really good point of how do you hide the body and then have that mass of people come looking?
Well, here's the deal. If you hide the body like 10 or 20 feet from the campsite, nobody's going to look there.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Okay.
If they say, hey, I'm gonna look right over here behind this stump, you can just say, oh, I just went and peed behind that stump. I know for sure she's not there.
So, Steve, when Joe finally murders me, make
Go
sure to do a really thorough search
So
of
what
wherever
I say
he
is, hey,
says.
Joe, where was the last place that you peed?
Yeah, just be like, hey, Joe, where were you last? And he'll be like, oh, behind that stump. And you'll be like, great, that's definitely where Devin's body is.
That's it, I know. But that's just a possibility. I mean, obviously, maybe a murder, maybe the husband did it, I don't know. I don't see her getting lost, though, really, because she had all kinds of people out there beating the brush looking for her.
Well, but if she took the shortcut, and I actually, so this is the other thing. I know I said this before with Paula, but she's also going to be in an area that is a deciduous forest, which is known for the love of God, the Northeast is known for their fall and the number of leaves that change color and then hit the ground. And I know Devin has, I don't know if you have, Joe, but I've walked through those forests when it's nothing but leaves. And depending on where you're at, it can be 6 inches or more of leaf litter.
It also can happen seemingly overnight.
Yes.
It can be like, well, there's no way. It was 24 hours ago. There's no way that this leaf cover is. I don't need to poke it because there's no way there's a body under there. But it could have had all of those trees could have just lost their leaves in the last 24 hours.
So, like in the case of Paula, it's entirely possible that, let's say there's, I'm going to use a log. There's a log on the ground, and she curls up next to it as a windbreak and dies of exposure. And then the trees above her all decide to let go of their leaves at one time, and she is completely covered. And it is just a log-shaped hump in the ground, and somebody goes, oh, well, it's just a log. Yeah. Okay, and they don't search the entire length of it.
Yeah. Well, that's one reason too that I'm not that enthusiastic about lumping this in with the rest of the Bennington disappearances anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's
Well,
far
I'm talking
away.
about Paula, though.
Oh,
not Frida.
Oh, Paula.
I was talking about for Paula.
Paula disappeared December 1st. I mean, aren't all the leaves down by that time in New England?
Yeah.
It's true. And when did Frida disappear?
Frida disappeared
October.
in October.
Okay, so I'm getting them backwards. I apologize.
Paula,
I think I agree. I think Frida shouldn't be lumped in these anyway.
Her body was found, and she could possibly have wandered off. That's just. But the other thing about it is,
I think she was murdered.
I think probably too, because here's the deal: is that so she falls into the creek. She tells her cousin to go ahead and continue up the trail. She's just going to dash back, change clothes, come back and meet him. Therefore, they could not have been very far from camp at all.
I want to know why the hell her cousin did.
Or just wait. It is a little weird. But the thing about it is they had to have been close enough that if she had gotten lost or fallen and broken her ankle or whatever, she should have been within hearing distance.
Shouting distance?
She should have been. Because otherwise, how could she possibly hope to go all the way back, change her clothes, come all the way back and catch up with him? Unless they were really close.
Maybe she went to town for a beer run.
maybe she just decided if she was going to disappear and start a new life and call herself Bernie Sanders.
Maybe.
Yeah, that could have been it.
This is twice Bernie Sanders is in this episode. Two different people.
Yeah, she was 53 at the time. That would make her about the right age. Yeah.
Given that Bernie Sanders is 302.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Do we have any other theories?
Any other theories? No. I mean, it's hard. It's very hard to say, but there does seem like there were a bit more than the average disappearances in this little area. Which doesn't necessarily mean it's a Bermuda Triangle or anything. But,
yeah, I mean, part of it is just there's a really hard trail right there.
Yeah, the trail, the serial killer. That'll count for some of it. It's interesting